Welcome back to the show. A plane load of asylum seekers has touched down in Nauru, becoming the third illegal arrival since November. Joining us to discuss today's headlines is Shadow Home Affairs Minister James Patterson. James, good morning. And the current affair reporter Neil Breen. Breeny, good morning. All right, James, you're first up. It's only 3 boats. Do you think that keeps Aussies awake at night?
Well, it's 3 boats that have made it all the way to the Australian mainland, Carl. That's virtually unheard of in the last decade of Australian border protection. It's actually 13 boats since the election. I think it's now clear that the Prime Minister has lost control of our borders, and it's because he's undermined and repealed the successful policies.
3 boats isn't a wave, though. Come on.
Well, 3 boats to the Australian mainland is an extraordinary thing. 13 boats carrying more than 300 people in the last 2 years is a significant load of asylum seekers. And it's because they've cut border force. It's because they've undermined maritime surveillance and aerial surveillance. They've failed to deliver the hours. And they repealed temporary protection visas. We warned them, do not do this. We said if this happens, the boats will start again. And look at what we're seeing right now.
Breeny, this is the first Chinese boat to reach Australia since 2012. It is a real problem of perception for the government.
That hits the nail on the head, Carl. It's just the public will sit back and go, OK, what's happening here? It is only 3 boats in the last several months. It's not opened the floodgates. It's not cause for massive panic. But we know what people smugglers do, and we know what their business model is. Well, it's not a new government now, but a change of government. Test the waters, see what happens, push the boundaries, and they are pushing the boundaries.
If they get sent to Nauru and get sent home...
then it didn't work.
Yeah.
Then it didn't work. But if they get sent to Nauru and several of them get to Australia, or there's this claim and that claim, and we've seen legal actions and everything, and I can understand why the opposition's driving hard at it.
Yeah, well, you get sent to Nauru and then at some point down the track you get let out. Maybe.
Maybe. You know, that's the plan anyway.
Well, Japan could soon join the AUKUS military technology, sharing the pact alongside Australia, the US and the UK. James, AUKUS becoming JAWKUS. I can't see China having a problem with this.
It rolls off the tongue, doesn't it, Carl? Look, it's possible that our friends in China might have some objections to this, and if you were going to invite any country in the world to join AUKUS, Japan would be the logical one. Their technological and industrial capabilities are very well fitted, plus they've got really strongly aligned values and interests and perspective. Having said that, we've got a lot of work to do already with both Pillar 1, the submarines, and Pillar 2, the advanced capabilities, and we need to make sure that the first 3 countries in AUKUS have that well and truly nailed down before we start inviting any other country to join us.
You don't think China's going to have an issue?
Look, they might. Just maybe just a little objection. Certainly they do worry about allies, like-minded democracies coming together, working together to defend our interests and to uphold the status quo for all nations in the Indo-Pacific, which is what we offer.
We just got wine back on track, Breeny. It's obviously a big boost for our regional alliances. And do we really care what China thinks with their 370 ships?
We care a lot, Carl.
Exactly.
We care a lot. I think the problem we're having in Australia is the mixed messaging over China. The federal government's being very friendly with China, lots of visits, re-establishing the relationships. We know under the previous coalition government the relationship was shattered. We go and do the deal with AUKUS and everything. No, but here we are doing these massive deals with these major superpowers around the world to protect ourselves, yet at the same time our government seems to say, oh, there's nothing to fear here. Well, we get on with China.
Richard Miles said to our program a couple of months ago, James, they as a government can walk and chew gum at the same time, whereas you guys couldn't.
Well, I think Neil's right. I think a lot of Australians are confused. On the one hand, the government is stopping their criticism of the Chinese government, whether it's their human rights abuses, their activities in the South China Sea, or their interference in our own democracy. And on the other hand, they're telling the public we need to spend billions of dollars on AUKUS to defend ourselves, and we won't say from what. I think a bit of directness and plain speaking is necessary here. The Chinese Communist Party and their Navy is building the Australian Navy every single year to add to their existing Navy, and they're not just doing that for the fun of it. They're doing it to project their power and their influence in the region, and they may use it, and we have to be ready to defend ourselves.
A supermarket review has recommended billions in fines if grocery giants are found ripping off suppliers. James, rather than break them up, fine them. That's a better solution, isn't it?
It's a good start, but we also think a targeted divestment power is also necessary, because otherwise consumers are going to be taken advantage of by anti-competitive conduct by the big supermarkets. And when Australians are struggling with the cost of living, that's just not good enough, and the Prime Minister's excuses don't add up.
So you'll back that?
Yeah, I think it's a good start, but it's not sufficient on its own, and we'll be introducing our own measures.
Neil, the complexities of this, when you drill into some of the detail, farmers, it's to ensure that farmers don't get ripped off. I mean, that's easier said than done.
It's all about all suppliers, Carl. It's about protecting all suppliers, because I think there's this voluntary code. This is making it a mandatory code, and under the voluntary code there were 6 complaints from compliers over the last several years and none of them won. But I see this review by Craig Emerson, a former Labor person, as he the very best person in Australia to do it. We just get an old mate to come in here and do this report. I read through all the news stories today and I was battling to find some detail and some real solutions for Australians.
Yeah, but the coalition's just backed it. What more do you want?
I want to blow it up. No, honestly, Carl, I
get what you're saying.
I did the shopping at Woolies on Saturday with my daughter.
Yeah.
We were actually laughing in the aisles about the prices of things.
What do you mean?
Well, how massive it is, and the inflation and the cost of everything.
Yeah.
And you have to times this by all the people in the suburbs and the regions of Australia battling away, and here's a report, and we're going to bring in a code and we'll get the ACCC involved, and an old Labor hack's done this, and then the Treasurer says, I'll take this under advisement, I'll look at it later. It's as weak as water.
All right, but it's just been backed by the coalition. Anyway, there's not going to be any...
Well, I'll get the Greens or someone fired up about
Let's get the Greens on side. James, just before we go, Richmond got beaten by aliens, according to Ross Lyon on the weekend. That must have been a bit of a surprise for you.
Mate, it hasn't been a very promising start to the season. I've got a 5-year-old who's just getting into footy. I think this is probably not the year to take him to too many games, otherwise you'll switch teams on me.
All right, there you go.
They can't complain. Richmond, they won a few. Now they've got to have a decade at the bottom and then come back. That's the cycle of life.
It's a cycle of life. Sarah, you know all about it.
Oh, come on. The Saints are looking good, though, I'll give you that. Well,